Hello friends, today we are going to start nervous system. As you know that our nervous system is divided into two parts, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of
इथे स्लाइडला क्लिक करायचं पुढे नाही गेले तरी इथे क्लिक करायचं.
Hello friends, from today we are going to start nervous system. As you know, recording सुरू केलं ना? As you know that our central nervous system consists of central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system consists of 31 pair of spinal nerve and 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Today we are mainly concerned with the spinal. Now what is this spinal cord? Actually, spinal cord is a
ऐसा ही पीपीटी दिखाएंगे और बोलते रहेंगे ये रहने वाला है.
Spinal cord is a lower tapering end of central nervous system. It is a continuation of medulla oblongata below the foramen magnum. And as you know, where is foramen magnum? Now this is the largest foramen of the cranial cavity, which is called foramen magnum, present in the norma basalis. And through this foramen magnum, various structures they transmit. This is the most commonly asked question in the exam. What are the different structures they pass through this foramen magnum? What are the different structures they pass? Through the anterior part, generally, the MCA, membrana tectoria, cruciate ligament, apical ligament abducens, they travel, whereas in the posterior part, neurovascular bundle, which is nothing but the spinal cord with 3 meninges, anterior spinal artery, 2 posterior spinal artery, 4th part of vertebral artery, spinal part of accessory nerve. These structures they pass through the posterior part. What is this medulla oblongata? As we say that the spinal cord is nothing but the continuation of medulla oblongata. Now what is this medulla oblongata? Our brain is divided into 3 parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. The hindbrain has 3 parts: pons, cerebellum, and medulla. Medulla is the lowermost part of the hindbrain, and this medulla below the foramen magnum continues as spinal cord.
अच्छा हा 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 तुम्ही हायलाइटर घेतलेलं हे क्लोज करायला हे वरचं तिथं मध्ये विचारलं होतं त्यांनी पॉपअप तुम्ही ओके यस म्हटलं त्याला अप्रूव्हल.
So the spinal cord is a continuation of medulla oblongata below the foramen magnum. So here from we which extent this spinal cord goes down. As you know, the spinal cord is present in the vertebral column. And now you also know that it is a continuation of medulla oblongata below the foramen magnum. Now from foramen magnum up to which vertebra it extends? It extends up to the lower border of first lumbar vertebra. So the spinal cord extends up to lower border of first lumbar vertebra. It begins from foramen magnum, lower border of foramen magnum, or you can say it begins from upper border of first cervical vertebra. So the extent of spinal cord is from upper border of first cervical vertebra to the lower border of first lumbar vertebra. Spinal cord is generally cylindrical in nature and its diameter is 1.25 centimeters. Its weight is 30 grams. Now this spinal cord, as it is present in the vertebral column, and in case of male, its length is 45 centimeter, whereas in case of female, its length is 42 centimeter. But the length of vertebral column is 70 centimeter in male and 60 centimeter in female, and thus the spinal cord occupies upper two-thirds of vertebral. So remember, though the spinal cord is present in the vertebral column, it occupies only upper two-thirds of vertebral column because the length of spinal cord is less than the length of vertebral column. This spinal cord does not end abruptly at the level of L1 vertebra. As it descends down, it tapers down in a cone-shaped manner, and at the lower border of first lumbar vertebra, it ends in a cone-like manner, which is called conus medullaris. What is conus medullaris? The conus medullaris is a lower tapering cone-like end of spinal cord. This is also commonly asked, what is conus medullaris? So conus medullaris is present at the level of L1 vertebra. It is the lower tapering end of spinal cord. Now this spinal cord on its either side gives attachment to 31 pairs of spinal nodes. And through these 31 pairs of spinal nodes, spinal cord has attachment with different parts of our body, like various tissues, blood vessel, viscera, muscles. So spinal cord is a continuation of medulla oblongata below the foramen magnum. Now here you can see this is the brain, this is the hindbrain, where this is the cerebellum, then this one is medulla oblongata. The spinal cord is a continuation of medulla oblongata. It extends from upper border of first cervical vertebra to the lower border of first lumbar vertebra. Here you can see as we go down, the spinal cord tapers down, and at the lower end of first lumbar vertebra, it becomes conical. Here you can more appreciate it. It becomes conical at the level of first lumbar vertebra, and this lower conical end is called conus medullaris. Now the spinal cord is a very important structure. The main functions of spinal cord, as you know, it carries various information from the periphery to the central nervous system, and from central nervous system to the periphery, and it also is responsible for many reflex action, and thus it is a very vital organ, and it is protected inside the vertebral column. Apart from vertebral column, it is also protected by certain protecting membranes, and these protecting membranes of spinal cord, they are called meninges. There are three membranes or three meninges which covers the spinal cord. From inside out, here you can see this is a transverse section of spinal cord. So here you can see this is the innermost red color membrane, which is called pia mater. Then there is blue color arachnoid matter, and above that blue color arachnoid matter, there is black colored dura matter. So the pia mater, arachnoid matter, and dura matter, these are the three protecting membranes that covers the spinal cord. Let us see how these membranes cover and what is their extent. Now this is the vertebral column, and in the innermost part is a spinal cord, which is covered by pia mater, arachnoid matter, and dura matter. Similarly, here also you can see this is the arachnoid matter, pia mater, arachnoid matter, and dura matter. Thus, the spinal cord is covered by three protective membranes. Let us see in brief about each membrane. First, we will see about the dura mater, which is also known as tough membrane or pachymenis. What is this dura mater? This dura mater, it loosely covers the spine. It is thick, non-elastic, fibrous membrane, and it continues below up to second sacral vertebra. But above, it is a continuation of meningeal layer of cranial dura mater. Now, what is this cranial dura mater? You also know that the brain is also covered by the three meninges, that is pia mater, arachnoid matter, and dura mater from inside out. In case of brain, the dura mater has two layers. One is meningeal layer, which is innermost layer, and outer layer is endosteal. The outer endosteal layer of cranial dura mater or outer endosteal layer of brain is attached to, it is connected to periosteal layer of skull through the sutures. And there are various sutures. As you know that the skull has various sutures. Through this suture, the endosteal layer and periosteal layer, they are connected with each other. And this endosteal layer ends at foramen magnum. Whereas meningeal layer of cranial dura mater continues downward and it covers the entire spinal cord. Now, in the cranial dura mater, as you know, in the cranial dura mater, there are various folds of meningeal layer of dura mater. Meningeal layer forms various folds. What are these folds? These are nothing but the falx cerebri, falx cerebelli, tentorium cerebri, and diaphragma cerebri. For such folds, they are not present in the meningeal layer of dura mater in spinal cord. So, in the spinal cord, dura mater is single layer, which is made up of meningeal layer, which is continuous above with the cranial layer of cranial meningeal layer. Whereas in case of brain, the dura mater has two layers. So that is the difference between the dura mater of brain and dura mater of spinal cord. In case of brain, the dura mater has two layers, outer endosteal layer, inner meningeal layer. Whereas in case of spinal cord, it has only one layer, that is nothing but the meningeal. In brain, the meningeal layer of dura mater forms various folds, whereas such folds are absent in case of spinal cord. Now, above the dura mater, in spinal cord, there is a space which is present between the dura mater and vertebral column, which is called epidural space or extradural space. Such space is absent. Epidural space or extradural space is absent in case of cranial dura mater. Now, what is present in the epidural or extradural space? As you know, that this epidural space or extradural space is a space between the spinal dura mater and vertebral column. In this space, there is presence of loose areolar tissue, semi-liquid fat, there is presence of internal venous vertebral plexus, and some capillaries. What are these internal vertebral venous plexus? These are also known as Batson's plexus. You have studied about these Batson's plexus. These are the wall-less plexus. These are wall-less venous plexus which are present in certain organs. And because of this wall-less venous plexus, malignancy of these organ is transferred, metastasized to the say spinal cord or brain. So which are the organs where internal vertebral venous plexus or basal plexus are present? These are prostate, mammary gland, and urinary bladder. And this we have already discussed in the lecture. Now, there is another space which is present below the dura mater, that is known as subdural space. As you know, that below the dura mater, there is arachnoid mater. So there is a space between dura mater and arachnoid mater, and this space is called subdural space. And in this space, there is presence of a serous fluid. It is not a CSF, it is not cerebrospinal fluid, but it is a serous fluid which prevent the friction between the dura mater and spia mater, dura mater and arachnoid mater. It lubricates these two membranes. Now, what is the importance of this epidural space or extradural? Apart from presence of internal vertebral venous plexus, this space is utilized by anesthetists for segmental anesthesia or regional anesthesia. For giving a segmental or regional anesthesia, even this space is utilized for giving analgesia in supramajor or major surgeries. It is the space which is used for painless childbirth, and this procedure is known as epidural anesthesia. So epidural space is important for the anesthetist. In this, through this space, segmental or regional anesthesia is given. Through this space, we can give analgesic in case of patients which are operated for supramajor or major surgeries, and this is the space most commonly used for painless delivery. Now coming to the arachnoid matter. Arachnoid matter is also known as spidery membrane. Now, this membrane is also loosely attached to the spinal cord. It is thin, delicate, transparent avascular membrane. Above, it is a continuation of arachnoid matter of brain, whereas below it continues up to second sacral vertebra. It is continues up to second sacral vertebra. Thus, arachnoid matter and dura matter, both they end or they extend up to second sacral vertebra, whereas spinal cord ends at lower border of first lumbar vertebra. Now, in between the arachnoid matter and the pia mater, because pia mater is present below the arachnoid matter, so in between arachnoid matter and pia mater, there is presence of subarachnoid space, and this subarachnoid space is the largest space present between the meninges, and in this space there is presence of cerebrospinal fluid. So in the subarachnoid space there is presence of cerebrospinal fluid, and this subarachnoid space is continuous above with the subarachnoid space of brain. Now, as you know that the spinal cord ends at the level of L1 vertebra, and arachnoid matter and the dura matter, they end at the level of S2, second sacral vertebra. So there is a large space between L1 vertebra and S2 vertebra, which is called as lumbar system, which is called as spinal system, which is called as dural sinus. And this is the sinus, this is the system where there is large amount of cerebrospinal fluid, because this is the subarachnoid space. So this lumbar system is present between L1 and S2. And this lumbar system consists of rootlets of cauda equina and phylum terminale. Now, what is this cauda equina or phylum terminale that we are going to see later on? But just remember at this level that this lumbar system, it is a space below the lower end of spinal cord and up to second sacral vertebra. So in this space, there is large amount of cerebrospinal fluid, and this space is utilized by anesthetists for giving spinal anesthesia. In spinal anesthesia, we give anesthetic agent, we infiltrate this, the anesthetic agent in the lumbar system, and by giving spinal anesthesia, most of the surgeries which are done below the umbilicus, they are done under the spinal anesthesia. Even this is the space which is commonly utilized for lumbar puncture. Why we do a lumbar puncture? We do lumbar puncture to collect cerebrospinal fluid. Why we want to collect the cerebrospinal fluid? In certain conditions, we want to examine the cerebrospinal fluid. For example, in meningitis, multiple sclerosis, in malignancy of brain and spinal cord, even GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome. In this also, we want to examine the spinal fluid, and at that time, we have to collect spinal fluid by doing lumbar puncture, and this lumbar puncture is done in this space. So how will you achieve this space? This space is achieved. We have to keep our one hand on the iliac crest, and as you know, the highest point on the iliac crest is at the level of L4. So first identify the highest point on the iliac crest and then go one space above or one space below. That means we have to introduce the spinal needle between L3 or L4 or L4 or L5. Thus, lumbar system is used for giving spinal anesthesia, or you can say for collecting the cerebrospinal fluid by lumbar puncture. Now coming to the innermost membrane, which is called pia mater. It is a very delicate membrane. It is a highly vascular membrane, and it closely invades the spinal cord. Other two membranes, they loosely attached to the spinal cord, whereas pia mater is closely attached to the spinal cord. What is the extent of spinal cord? The spinal cord, what is the extent of pia mater? Now this pia mater, which is the innermost membrane, which is closely attached to the spinal cord, it continues upward as a pia mater of the brain. And below, it ends at lower end of spinal cord, that means L1 level, and below the L1 level, it extends as thin filamentous thread-like structure, which is called filum terminale. What is this filum terminale? This filum terminale is an extension of pia mater below the L1 level, below the lower end of spinal cord. Below the lower end of spinal cord, the pia mater becomes thin, glistening white, glistening white thread-like structure which extends downward up to first coccygeal vertebra. That is called filum terminale. So filum terminale is the extension of pia mater. This pia mater ends at the level of first coccygeal vertebra. Thus, dura mater ends at the level of second sacral vertebra. Arachnoid mater ends at the level of second sacral vertebra. And the pia mater ends at the level of first coccygeal vertebra. And main spinal cord ends at the level of lower border of first lumbar vertebra. So the extent of spinal cord is from C1, that is first cervical vertebra, to L1, that is lower border of first lumbar vertebra. Normal length of spinal cord in male is 45 centimeter and in female it is 42 centimeter, and it occupies only the upper 2/3 of vertebral column. Now coming to the special parts of pia mater. This pia matter has certain structures that are called special parts of the pia. Out of that, one we have already discussed, that is phylum terminale. Second is linea splendens. Third one is ligamentum denticulum, and next one is subarachnoid septum. Sometimes there may be a short note on phylum terminale. Now, what is this phylum terminale? The phylum terminale, it is a non-nervous, delicate, glistening white, filamentous, thread-like structure which extends from the lower border of first lumbar vertebra to the first coccygeal vertebra. Its normal length is 20 centimeters. As you know, there is presence of dural sac, lumbar system, spinal system between L1 to S2. And this phylum terminale has to travel through this lumbar system, and that's why the phylum terminale is divided into two parts. The first part, which traverses through the lumbar system, pierces the dura mater and arachnoid mater, come out of the dural sac and get attached to the first coccygeal vertebra. So the part of the phylum terminale which is present in the lumbar system is called phylum terminale internal. Whereas part of the phylum terminale which is outside the dural sac, outside the lumbar system, is called phylum terminale external. So the phylum terminale internal extends from L1 to S2, whereas phylum terminale external extends from S2, the second sacral vertebra, to first coccygeal vertebra. So what is phylum terminale? It is a non-nervous, delicate, glistening white filamentous structure which is a continuation of pia mater beyond L1 vertebra. It extends downward up to first coccygeal vertebra. It passes through the lumbar system, pierces the arachnoid mater and dura mater at the level of second sacral vertebra, and then attaches to the first coccygeal vertebra. What is its function? Why this phylum terminale is present? This phylum terminale helps in keeping the spinal cord in its position, because the spinal cord continues upward as a medulla oblongata, and below it is attached to the first coccygeal vertebra. Thus, the spinal cord is attached to the first coccygeal vertebra through phylum terminale. Now coming to the another special feature of the pia mater, that is nothing but the linea splendens. What is linea splendens? Now this is the cross section of spinal cord. Here you can see this is the anterior median incision. We are going to see it, but just remember this is the deep cleft which is present anteriorly, called anterior median incision. As you know that the pia mater closely invades the spinal cord. Now these pia mater form a septum. It goes inside the anterior median fissure as a septum, and the site from which it goes is slightly thickened, and this septum of pia mater is called linea splendens. Thus, the spinal cord is attached to the pia mater anteriorly through linea splendens. So, what is linea splendens? It is a septum of pia mater which enters or which reaches the spinal cord through anterior median fissure. The other feature of pia mater is presence of subarachnoid septum. What is this subarachnoid septum? This red color is a pia mater. These pia mater send posteriorly through this is posterior median sulcus. Through posterior median sulcus, a septum which traverses the subarachnoid space and get attached to the subarachnoid membrane. So it is a septum present in the subarachnoid membrane, or it is a septum which connects pia mater to arachnoid mater. This is subarachnoid septum, and through this septum the spinal cord is attached to the arachnoid membrane or arachnoid matter. This is known as subarachnoid septum. Thus, this subarachnoid septum also helps in keeping the spinal cord in its position. The third and the most important modification of pia mater is ligamentum denticulate, or it is also known as denticulate ligament. What is the denticulate ligament? These are transparent ribbon-like sheet. Here you can see this violet color, transparent ribbon-like sheet. These sheets, they are present bilaterally on the either side of spinal cord. Now, these sheets, they become conical and they run between the two roots of spinal nerve. This is the anterior root and behind there is a posterior root. In between the anterior and posterior roots of spinal nerve, the conical projection of pia mater runs. This conical projection pierces, it passes through subarachnoid space, pierces the subarachnoid membrane, and then get attached to the dura mater, inner surface of dura mater. And this cone, as it is a cone-like, as the tooth-like, it is called ligamentum denticulatum or denticulate ligament. And this denticulate ligament also connects the spinal cord to the dura mater. So the spinal cord is connected to dura mater with the help of ligamentum denticulum. Spinal cord is connected to arachnoid mater through arachnoid septum. Spinal cord is connected to pia mater through ligamentum lineus splendens. So all these membranes, they are connected to the pia mater. Now this ligamentum denticulatum, which is a cone-like or tooth-like structure, it extends from the first cervical vertebra to the first lumbar vertebra. And that's why their number is 21. So there is presence of 21 teeth-like triangular processes which are called ligamentum denticulatum or denticulate ligament. First ligament is present at the foramen magnum and the last is present between T12 to L1 vertebra. What is the function of this ligamentum denticulatum? We have already discussed this. It helps in anchoring the spinal cord to the dura mater bilaterally. So, if you see the projection of this pia mater, the pia mater, first projection lineus splendens, then second projection, which is nothing but the subarachnoid septum, which passes to the subarachnoid space and get attached to the subarachnoid membrane. The another one is ligamentum denticulatum, which also traverses through the subarachnoid space, pierces the arachnoid matter and get attached to the dura mater. Thus, the subarachnoid membrane has many septa, which gives it an appearance of spider, and that is why the name is given, web of spider, that is arachnoid matter. So why it is known as spidery membrane? Because it has many septa, just like a web of spider. So these are the all expansions or special features of pia mater. So I think you are clear about the three layers, three membranes, three protecting membranes of spinal cord, that is dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. All the pia mater extends up to first coccygeal vertebra. Dura mater and arachnoid mater, they extends up to second sacral vertebra. Now coming to the external features of spinal cord. What are the various structures that can be seen with our naked eyes when we examine the spinal cord? So when we examine the spinal cord, we can see various fissures and sulci, various attachments of spinal nerve. There is presence of caudal vein. There are certain enlargement that can be easily noted down by just external examination of the spinal cord. And these structures, external features, they are nothing but the face. So face, these are the external features of spinal cord, where F stands for fissures and sulci, A stands for attachment of spinal nerve, C stands for cauda equina, and E stands for enlargement. Let us see in brief about each. What do by fissure? Fissure is a deep cleft, and sulci, it is a shallow sulcus, shallow groove. So first we will see about the fissures. This is the cross section of spinal cord. This is the anterior aspect of spinal cord, and behind is the posterior aspect of the spinal cord. Now what we can see on the anterior aspect of spinal cord? On the anterior surface, we can see in the center there is presence of anterior median fissure. So this is the anterior median fissure, which is a deep cleft, and this anterior median fissure is continuous throughout the spinal cord, and above it continues as anterior median fissure of medulla oblongata. In this anterior median fissure, anterior spinal artery lodges, and this anterior spinal artery is formed by small branches which are coming from right and left side of vertebral artery. So two branches of vertebral artery join together and form anterior spinal artery, which runs downward in the anterior median fissure. Now on posteriorly, here you can see the posteriorly, there is presence of posterior median sulcus. Posteriorly, there is presence of posterior median sulcus. Now this posterior median sulcus is a shallow groove. Through this posterior median sulcus, a septum of neuroglial tissue, as you know, that nervous system consists of neuroglial cells and neurons. Neuroglial cells, they are nothing but the supporting cells. These neuroglial cells form a septum, and this septum enters in the substance of spinal cord to different extent. This is called posterior median septum, and this enters into the substance of spinal cord through posterior median sulcus. So there is anterior median fissure through which anterior spinal artery runs, whereas there is posterior median sulcus through which posterior median septum enters in the spinal cord. Now on either side, anterior, you can see on either side there is presence of anterolateral sulcus. This is anterolateral sulcus. This is anterolateral sulcus. To the anterolateral sulcus, anterior roots of spinal nerve, anterior roots of spinal nerve emerge. They come out of the spinal cord. So through the anterior lateral sulcus, the anterior roots of spinal nerve comes out. Then on the posterior aspect, there is presence of posterior lateral sulcus and also posterior intermediate sulcus. Let us see again these all sulci. Now this is the cross section of spinal cord. This is anterior aspect. This is posterior aspect. Now this is the deep anterior median fissure. This is a deep cleft. This is anterior median fissure through which anterior spinal artery runs. Then this is the posterior median sulcus through which a septum made up of neuroglial tissue enters in the substance of spinal cord to the variable extent. Then on anterior aspect, laterally, there is presence of anterolateral sulcus. This is anterior lateral sulcus. Then along posterior aspect, there is presence of posterior lateral sulcus. There is posterior lateral sulcus. And on the posterior aspect, there is one more sulcus which is present only in the cervical and upper thoracic region. That is nothing but the posterior intermediate sulcus. This is the posterior intermediate sulcus. So there is anterior median fissure, posterior median sulcus. Two anterior lateral sulcus on each side of anterior median fissure. Similarly, on either side of posterior median sulcus, there is presence of posterior lateral sulcus throughout the entire length of spinal cord, whereas along the cervical and upper thoracic region, there is presence of posterior intermediate sulcus. Now, what is the importance of this sulci and fissure? Now, this is again a cross section of spinal cord. Here you can see this is the anterior median fissure. This is posterior median sulcus. Due to presence of anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus, the spinal cord is divided into two equal halves, right and left half. So, because of presence of anterior median fissure and posterior median sulcus, spinal cord is divided into two equal parts. Each half of the spinal cord is further divided into three parts by anterolateral sulcus and posterolateral sulcus. This is posterolateral sulcus, this is anterolateral sulcus. The space, the area between anterior median fissure and anterior lateral sulcus is called anterior area. The space between posterior median sulcus and posterior lateral sulcus is called posterior area. Whereas the space between anterior lateral sulcus and posterior lateral sulcus is called lateral area. So there is anterior area which is present between anterior median fissure and anterior lateral sulcus. There is posterior area which is present between the posterior median sulcus and posterior lateral sulcus. And there is lateral area which is present between posterior lateral sulcus and anterior lateral sulcus. You already know that anterior roots or ventral roots of spinal nerve emerge, they come out through anterolateral sulcus, whereas posterior roots or dorsal roots of spinal nerve they are entering into the spinal cord. So remember, dorsal root enters inside the spinal cord, whereas ventral root comes out of the spinal. Now the second feature of spinal cord is presence of attachments of spinal nerve. These spinal nerves can be seen with our naked eyes. And there are 31 pairs of spinal nerve. So remember, there are 31 pairs of spinal nerve, whereas there are 33 vertebrae. You know that the vertebral column is made up of 33 vertebrae. Out of that, 7 are cervical, 12 are thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 4 coccygeal. These are the number of vertebrae, which are 33. Whereas spinal nerves, they are 31 in number. And the spinal nerve in the cervical region, they are 8. In the cervical vertebrae are 7. But cervical spinal nerves are 8. Remember, the cervical spinal nerves are 8, but cervical vertebrae are 7. Then thoracic, lumbar and sacral vertebra and spinal nerve, they are same. They are of same number. Whereas there are 4 coccygeal vertebra, but there is a single pair of coccygeal spinal nerve. So there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves and there are 33 vertebrae. All the cervical spinal nerves which are coming out from the spinal cord to the intervertebral foramen, these spinal nerves, they lie above the corresponding vertebra in the cervical region. In the cervical region, the spinal nerves, they run above the numerologically corresponding vertebra. Whereas eighth cervical spinal nerve runs between C7 and T1 vertebra, because there is no C8 spinal, 8th cervical vertebra. So the 8th cervical spinal nerve runs between C7 and T1 vertebra, whereas remaining all the spinal nerves, they emerge below the corresponding numerical vertebra, below the numerically corresponding vertebra. So there are 31 pairs of spinal nerve. The spinal nerves are 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. Out of that, in the cervical region, the spinal nerve emerge above the numerically corresponding cervical vertebra. Except 8th cervical spinal nerve, it comes out between C7 and T1 vertebra. Whereas this should be C7. Then remaining all spinal nerves, they are coming below the numerically corresponding vertebra. This is all about the spinal nerves. Now, how this spinal nerve is formed? This part you have already studied, but let us revise it again. As we know that the spinal nerve has two roots. One is anterior root or ventral root, another is dorsal root or posterior. So what is dorsal? Ventral root contains? The ventral root contains motor or efferent fibers. The ventral root contains motor or efferent fibers to skeletal muscles, various internal organs, various blood vessels. These ventral root comes out of the spinal cord to anterolateral sulcus, whereas dorsal root, it conveys. So remember, ventral root contains, dorsal root conveys, dorsal root enters inside the spinal cord. It conveys afferent or sensory fibers from peripheral receptors such as skin, muscles, bones and joints, and different internal organs. And this dorsal root has a ganglion called dorsal root ganglion, or it is also known as spinal ganglion. And as you know, the ganglion is nothing but the collection of nerve cell bodies. And here in this dorsal root ganglion or spinal ganglion, there is collection of nerve cell bodies. And as you know, there are various types of nerves which are classified according to their polarity, according to their function, according to their length. In the dorsal root, there is presence of sensory unipolar cells. There is presence of cell bodies of sensory unipolar cells. So remember, in the dorsal root, there is presence of cell bodies of sensory unipolar cells. So thus the dorsal root and the ventral roots, they join together in the intervertebral foramen. Just joining these two roots, the dorsal root has a dorsal root ganglion. These two roots join together and form a nerve that is known as spinal nerve, which is a mixed nerve. And this spinal nerve then comes out of the intervertebral foramen. And as soon as it comes out of the intervertebral foramen, it divides into two rami, that is known as anterior rami and posterior rami, or ventral rami and dorsal rami. And as you know, the dorsal rami supplies the muscles of back and skin, whereas ventral rami supply the muscles of anterior aspect of the body. This is about the formation of spinal nerve. So the spinal nerve is formed by two roots, ventral root and dorsal root. Two roots join at intervertebral foramen. Before joining, the dorsal root has a ganglion called dorsal root ganglion. Two roots then join together in the intervertebral foramen, form a mixed nerve, which is nothing but the spinal nerve. The nerve comes out of the intervertebral foramen, divides into two rami, and then the anterior rami and posterior rami. Anterior rami, they supply the muscles of anterior aspect of the body. Posterior rami supplies the muscles of posterior aspect of the body and the skin over the back or posterior aspect. So here again you can see this is the anterior or ventral root. This is dorsal root ganglion, formation of spinal nerve. Nerve comes out, divides into dorsal ramus and ventral ramus. And this is the spinal nerve. Now coming to the spinal segment or neuromere. Now what is this spinal segment? This is also a very commonly asked question in the table 1. What is spinal segment? Now, it is a part of spinal cord. It is a part of spinal cord to which a pair of spinal nerve is attached. This is the spinal nerve. This is the pair of spinal nerve. This is the spinal part of the spinal cord. This is the spinal segment. So what is spinal segment? A spinal segment is a part of spinal cord to which pair of spinal nerves are attached. And as there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves, there are 31 pairs of spinal segments. So remember, there are 31 pairs of spinal nerve, there are 31 pairs of spinals, there are 31 spinal segments, and there are 33 vertebrae. And spinal segment or neuromere is nothing but part of the spinal segment to which pair of spinal nerves are attached. Now this one should have thorough knowledge about the level of spinal cord and vertebra. As you know that the spinal cord ends at the level of L1 vertebra and there are 33 vertebra. So the spinal cord ends quite above and the spinal nerve has to travel through the intervertebral foramen. So as a rule, spinal segments, they are above the corresponding vertebra. So normally the level of spinal segment is above the vertebral level, except in the upper cervical region. In the upper cervical region, the spinal segments are at the same level at that of their corresponding numerically corresponding vertebra. For example, second spinal segment is present at the level of second vertebra. Whereas in the lower cervical region, for example, C6, sixth spinal segment is present above the corresponding vertebra, means it is present above the sixth vertebra. It is present at the level of C5. In the lower cervical region, the spinal segment is present one vertebra above. Are you getting this? As a rule, the spinal segments, they are present above the vertebra. Above the vertebra. 10 मिनिट. उशीर असून झालं. 5 मिनिट. So the spinal segment, they are present above the corresponding vertebral level. Now this vertebral level is different at different regions. In the upper cervical region, the spinal segment, they are at the same vertebral level. But in the lower cervical region, the spinal cord and the spinal segment is present one vertebra above the vertebral level. So the sixth cervical spinal segment is present at the level of fifth vertebra. Similarly, in the upper thoracic region, the spinal segment is present 2 vertebra above. That means, for example, fifth thoracic spinal segment is present above the third vertebra, is present at the level of third thoracic vertebra. Are you getting this? So the spinal segments, they are present above the vertebral level, above the numerically corresponding vertebra, and they are present in 1, 2, 3, 5 or 10 vertebra above, depending upon the region. Now coming to the quad equina. Now what is this quad equina? Now, as you know that the spinal in adults, the spinal cord occupies the entire only the upper third of the vertebral column. In the intrauterine life, the spinal cord occupies the entire length of vertebral column. After third month of intrauterine life, the growth of the spinal cord is at slower rate than the vertebral column, and that's why after third month, the spinal cord is at the level of L3 vertebra, where L3 vertebra. After birth also, the spinal cord is at the level of L3 vertebra, that is third lumbar vertebra. And in adult, the spinal cord ends at the level of L1 vertebra. That you know. Now, each spinal nerve has to come out, and to come out, it comes out through its corresponding intervertebral foramen. And as the spinal cord is above and the intervertebral foramens are below as we go down, so the nerve has to take oblique course, or in the lower part approximately the straight course to reach to its corresponding intervertebral foramen. And that's why in the lower part, lumbar, sacral and coccygeal nerve takes more or less vertical course and forms a bunch of nerve fibers around the final terminal, which is called cauda equina. So what is cauda equina? It is a bunch of roots of pair of lumbar, sacral, coccygeal nerve around the phylum terminale in the lumbar system. So cauda equina is formed because the spinal nerve has to reach its corresponding intervertebral foramen and then come out, and the spinal segments or spinal cord ends above than the vertebral column. So the spinal segment is above and the spinal intervertebral foramen is below. So now has to reach its corresponding intervertebral foramen. So it has to take either oblique or vertical course and then come out. So because of this, in the lower part there is presence of bunch of roots of spinal nerves, which is known as cauda equina. Thus, the cauda equina is formed by pairs of 10 spinal roots or pairs of 10 spinal nerves. So, which are these 10 spinal nerves? It consists of roots of lower 4 pairs of lumbar nerves, 5 pairs of sacral nerves, and 1 pair of coccygeal. So that is a cauda equina. Cauda means tail, equina means horse. As it has a resemblance with the horse's tail, it is called cauda equina. So this is the cauda equina, which is formed by the 10 pairs of lower 10 spinal nerves. Is formed by the pairs of lower 10 spinal nerves. Generally, there is a short note on cauda equina, and so cauda equina, they are formed because the spinal segments are above, spinal nerve are taking origin above, and they have to run to this to their respective intervertebral foramen. So the nerve has to take either oblique or vertical course, and then that's why in the lower part there is bunch of nerves around the phylum terminal. Now coming to the enlargement. When we see the spinal cord, externally, then we can see that there is presence of 2 enlargement. These are present in the cervical region and in the lumbar region. They are present along the spinal segment, mainly C5 to T1, and in the lumbosacral region, they are present at the level of L2 and S3. And as you know that from L5 to T1, the spinal nerves, they form brachial plexus, and through these plexus, they supply the large muscles of upper extremity and the shoulder girdle. And in the lumbosacral region, they supply large muscles of inferior extremity and and pelvic girdle. And because of this, there is presence of large motor neuron. There is presence of large number of large motor neuron in this region, and that's why there is presence of fusiform enlargement. There is presence of fusiform enlargement in the cervical region and in the lumbosacral region. These are called enlargement. So there are two enlargement. Normally, the shape of spinal cord is cylindrical and its diameter is 1.25 centimeter. But in these two regions, in the cervical region, along C5 to T1 spinal segments, and in the lumbosacral region, along the L2 to S3 spinal segment, there is enlargement because at this level, there is presence of large number of large motor neuron which supplies the heavy muscles of the upper and lower extremities along with their respective girdle. Thus, these are the all external features. That is face, fissures and sulci. A for attachment of 31 spinal nerve, C for cauda equina, and E for enlargement. This is all about the external features of the spinal cord. Now, this, as you know, that spinal cord is a very important organ. So it is covered by the bony cage formed by the vertebral column. There is presence of 3 spinal meninges and hydrostatic cushion of the cerebrospinal fluid. And this part we have already discussed that there are various factors which keep the spinal cord in its position, mainly the medulla oblongata and filum terminale and presence of ligamentum denticulum. Next part is applied of this spinal cord that we will see in next lecture, because Hale sir has already arrived. Thank you. If you have any problem, you can call me. I think you are clear about the external features of spinal cord.